Hey everybody, we had some trouble with the hair and the hairband. So far what I've heard are some really interesting things. We had tech, we got culture and politics, and we got art. And so I'm going to try to do is, I'm going to try to connect the dots for you a little bit. What I want to talk to you about is the connection between accumulating knowledge on one hand and actually transforming that knowledge into conversation, into language. And I want to show you that knowledge, as we think of it, is really not it is as it is anymore. And language is not what we think it is anymore. Basically, the time that we live in right now is really cool. I think it's very fascinating. By 2020, 80% of the adult population are going to have a smartphone. Think about that for a second. The connection you're going to have with almost everybody else on this earth, it's immaculate, it's huge. That gives you such power, and it's in your hands. Think about that. This is so empowering. It's something that's never been achieved, and it's very different. And we're the first generation to really explore what that means. But that also means that it's going to change the way we talk to each other. It's going to change the way we connect with each other, and it's going to change how far we can reach to people that are in different countries, in different geographical positions. And it also changes what knowledge means. All right, let's see how this works. That's me. All right. Back in the day, in ancient Greece, Plato assumed that in the perfect society, philosophers would be at the top. Philosophers would be king. His student, Aristotle, became Alexander the Great's tutor. So that's pretty close in terms of philosophers as kings. And then history has been riddled with examples of philosophers and scholars being at the heights and echelons of society. My favorite is Machiavelli. But think about this today. How many philosophers who are alive today do you know? Compare that to how many journalists who are alive that you know. Think about the papers. There should be a big difference. I can only think of a couple of philosophers. I can think of many more journalists. And that's not coincidence. Things are changing because of the way that we're speaking. The language that we used to speak in, and the medium through which we're speaking to other people, and the audience who we're speaking to. It's also important to note that the person who's allowed to speak the truth about the world is different. It's no longer the philosopher. We don't turn to the philosopher to know what is right and what is wrong. And that's very important. So I didn't know all this when I went to school, and I really didn't know this when I went to university. And so I thought that by just studying a lot and getting good grades, I'll get at that echelon of society. I'll be the Machiavelli. That wasn't really what happened. So I couldn't really get a job because I didn't really have any marketable skills. But instead I was offered to do a PhD, and I took it. The problem was that immediately after I started, I really didn't like the academic atmosphere. I didn't like what my academic writing was turning into. I hated using words like thus, therefore, however, albeit. What does that even mean? Like, why does it take so long to say something? And, I didn't like the fact that there were some really cool people working with me that were really coming up with fantastic stuff, really contributing to what the world means and how it's shaped. And yet, because of words like albeit, and because their papers were like 300 pages, much of their ideas wouldn't reach anybody. Nobody would actually read their stuff. And it would take them 3 years to write that. I thought that was something that's very, very wrong. You guys know Ross from Friends, right? Well, for me, I love the parts where he started talking about his PhD, where he got really excited about dinosaurs, and he got all flared up. And the response he always got was people who were either falling asleep, they were getting annoyed, or they were getting angry with him. And I could really associate with that. I really felt for Ross. And I didn't want that to happen to me. So I knew that I had to learn a new language. I knew that I had to become contemporary with the kind of social media that was transforming the world around me. But before I continue about how that happened with me, I want to take you a couple of hundred years back. I want to show you something really cool. So 230 years ago, a German periodical, which is old school talk for newspaper, pushed out a crucial question to get some engagement from the readers. The question was, what is enlightenment? Now, what do you guys think enlightenment is? I can't really tell you. I think the point of enlightenment is that everybody has to figure out what it is for themselves. But the cool thing is that in the 18th century, the editors of this paper pushed this out because they didn't have the answer themselves. It's kind of like what we have today with BBC, Have Your Say, or The Guardian's like, comment is free. But I think what they had was much cooler. 1784, an edition of this paper featuring Immanuel Kant, who's one of the respondents who answered the question, what is enlightenment? Now, Immanuel Kant is one of the coolest and most important philosophers of our modern time. Pretty badass, I think. That's crazy. And this minor text, this is 4 or 5 pages, this minor text is said to have changed the whole trajectory of modern philosophy because he defined enlightenment. And enlightenment means reason, and reason is the basis of modern philosophy. Now, he defined enlightenment as that. It's when you emerge from your self-imposed immaturity. And immaturity is your inability to think for yourself without someone else helping you out. So basically, Kant said that we need to grow up intellectually and take the risk and responsibility to think for ourselves. And the motto that he had was dare to know. All right, pretty simple. It doesn't sound very philosophical. But the idea is that you approach all authority out there. You take a critical look at the book that's supposed to think for you, at the institutions like the state, the family, hospitals, prisons that tell you what's right and what's wrong. The way that you engage with the world, so in my case, the media. And you look at that very critically and you think again. You don't just take it for granted. But if you think about it, if Kant had published his article today, nobody would have read it. I wouldn't have read it. It's dry, it's long, it's boring, has no pictures, doesn't have any GIFs, doesn't have any memes. How would I find it on the internet? There's so much more out there. Maybe if he'd used the hashtag, say, Philosopher King, and that was trending, maybe I would have found that out. But who knows? And that's really important because its language is outdated. It's old and it's tired. And the only place that this language is kept up is academia. They still think that this is the way forward. But it's not. It's dying. And the world that we live in needs to know that it's not just about daring to know. It's not just about going out there, accumulating knowledge, making fantastic discoveries, but being unable to actually translate that and talk to people in an engaging way. So what does it matter if you know a lot if you can't really translate it and people don't know? It doesn't reach anybody, right? Well, I think the way that we accumulate knowledge is automatic anyway. The way that you scroll for Facebook, you're just scrolling from information. Your brain is constantly accumulating data. It's constantly thinking about it. We don't need to worry about the fact that we don't know enough. We know enough. We just don't know how to express it. We don't know how to say it in a cool way. Most of the things we say are boring. And we have an opportunity to actually change that. And so I want to propose something that nobody's ever done before. I'm going to say that Kant was wrong. And I'm going to change his motto from dare to know to dare to speak. Pretty badass, I know. Now, how many of you use Twitter actively? Show of hands. 1? 2? All right. I'm not even going to ask you if you know this in that case. But this is a very, very famous Twitter feed. It's run by a guy who used to be a professor at German philosophy in America. And he has 103,000 followers in under 1 year. That's bonkers. I have 1,000, and I worked hard for that. He has 103,000. And the meaning of 9, it's from the German no. And it always reminds me of my friend who tattooed the bottom of her lip with 9 because she was just bored of saying no to guys at clubs. So she just kind of like flipped her lip and was like, figure it out. But behind the Twitter account is this guy. His name is Eric Jaroszynski. And what he did was fascinating. I kind of think that he's the contemporary Kant, although I think he would disagree. He would be like more Nietzsche or Adorno. And the Twitter handle is actually a picture of Adorno. Now what he did is he took all of this knowledge that he had from his academic background, twisted it on its head, and made it interesting. He freed it from the dead hand of academia. He made it interesting. He made it cool. And he managed to reach thousands and thousands of people that otherwise no academics would have reached. And this is my favorite tweet. It's really intelligent if you think about it. And this is another, and I'm sorry for the obscene words. But like when I read this, when I was preparing for this, I was like, damn, like it took me 3 years studying politics at university to really know the difference between ontology, epistemology, methodology. There were books and books written about it. 140 characters, sorted. Like, that means something. That really, really means something. It's very important. And so the transition from academia to social media is not straightforward. We all have to learn how to do it. But if you learn how to do it well, you really learn how to do it well. And who else is going to laugh at a joke about epistemology or about anything else academic? Nobody. And the fact that he's doing it means that he's absolutely brilliant. Now, I want to show you my first tweet when I started learning to use Twitter. I know, it's super bad. I don't know what it means. Like, what am I trying to say? And why do I expect that anybody on Twitter would care where I am? Plus, my location is kind of tagged, so I'm kind of using it as Facebook because my friends may care where I am. But Twitter is not like that. And so I want to show you how much better I've got. So I really like making fun of Putin, and I think that's something that a lot of people share with me. And so when this weasel on a bird came out, I couldn't help it. And so I made a Putin meme, and it got a lot more success from my previous Bulgarian nonsense. And I mean, that says a lot. That's what I meant earlier when I said, I didn't want to be Ross from Friends. I wanted to be part of this new social media transformation. I wanted to learn this new language. I wanted to know how to use this much more efficient and powerful way of speaking up, of engaging people with conversation, of changing what I'd learned from the academic talk and really powering it up and vamping it up. Because communication is no longer just about the written or the spoken word. Communication is an art form because it reaches so further. More importantly, the increasing importance and relevance of digital media gives you so much freedom to try different things, to experiment, but it also helps you join the conversation and change it. That's really, really important. You can be in there and change the way that things are happening. If you don't like it, if you're bored with what's written in the newspaper, you can actually get involved and change it. That's what's been happening this far. This is not irrelevant news, even though it just looks silly. It's not. It's very contemporary to the way that people are thinking about world leaders and the nonsense that they're doing. It's a very interesting response from citizens. So with the phone, as you can see, you actually have the power in your hands. Like, I don't have to rely on my memory for this. I can use my phone to help me out. And in case, I can actually, call a friend or tweet at someone if I really, really need the help and I got stuck. Hopefully I'm doing okay so far. But, okay, fine, speak up, do it. Fine, let's do it. Let's talk. But then, important questions come up afterwards. What are you going to talk about? How are you going to talk about it? These are crucial, crucial questions. Because all of us, regardless of how old we are, we're all part of a digital millennial generation. That means it's the smartphone generations. We all use our smartphone to filter through traditional news and generic, digital news. That's very important to note. Because all of us share a medium and an experience. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit about that, about how I managed to get involved in that and kind of not be Ross. So right now, I'm working for this really cool digital platform, which is called AJ+. And it's specifically aimed at our generation, the millennial generation. And what it does is it produces news. It utilizes social media for citizen-generated material and explains the world for our generation in a different way from all those generations preceding ours. And what my role there is to make things that are going on in Europe cool and interesting and engaging. And I specialize in Eastern Europe and Russia specifically, and that's why Putin, obviously. So, in a way, what I'm doing there is combining my academic interests. So that's the what of what I'm talking about. But I'm doing it in a cool way, I might add. Let me show you one of the things that I was working on recently. So this is in Donetsk, which is now held by pro-Russian rebels in eastern Ukraine. The Lenin statue is just on the border when it was taken in, I think on the February 8th, by a good friend of mine called Georgi Totev. So this was taken when this was on the border between the fighting between the Ukrainian army and the pro-Russian rebels. And what this monument signifies is the kind of split that's going on between the Western Ukraine and the Eastern Ukraine based on nationhood and identity. But it also speaks to something very different, a very different kind of East-West split that goes back 25 years before to the Soviet Union, to the place of Eastern Europe between the Soviet Union, between the West. And it's cool. It's Lenin, but he's painted in Ukrainian flags. This was unimaginable before, that you would interrogate such a statue and use it as a form of work of art. And this is not just in Ukraine, this is all around Eastern Europe. And the fact that I can do that, because this is something that I'm doing for my PhD, and put it on Instagram through AJ Plus and engage people through that and talk to you about it is really cool. Now, I want to show you something a little bit more serious. So this is a video that we did, and it shows mothers in 2 different cities reacting after bombardment starts to the fact that their children are out there on the front line. And I'm just going to let you watch it and then we can talk about it. I don't know if there's sound.
По аэродрому. И попали. Кто стрелял?
Want more? Download the AJ Plus mobile app and join the conversation. Available in your app store now.
What this video does is it switches the storyteller. So it switches the point of view. It changes the way that we talk about the Ukraine conflict. It's not about geopolitics. It's not about history, the role of Russia, the Maidan, or it's not about statistics, how many bombs, how many people dead. It brings you right in there. You're right in there. You see in real time what is going on from the person's point of view. And that's the kind of connection that usually news doesn't give you. The dry, separated academic news and analysis doesn't give you that point of view. And I think that's extremely important. And this is something very important, because if what you saw with the Lenin statue is engaging and cool and fun and colorful, this is about empowerment. This is about giving the people the opportunity and the space to engage and to talk and to debate amongst each other. That is the most important part of what I try to tell you in terms of dare to speak compared to dare to know. Because it doesn't matter if you know all the details. The feeling that you have just from seeing that video is a whole other thing. And we need to bring that up because we have the capacity, the technological capacity to do that. Now, with AJ Plus, as well as other media outlets like BuzzFeed or Mashable, what you get is an aesthetic. You get a cultural experience about the world that we live in, our place in it, and they thrive on engaging us to join them. They want the individual to get involved, to speak up. When you think about it, it's actually not crazy to join these conversations. It's not crazy to join the organizations like BuzzFeed or like AJ Plus or Mashable. It's not crazy to go out there and develop a story, to guide a story. And all you need is 600 words or 140 characters or a GIF or a meme. You know, these are not silly internet fads. These are very powerful ways of making connections amongst people from all around the world. You know, Kant couldn't do that. Kant wouldn't have done that. He doesn't have the capacity, nor is he supposed to do that. And therefore, you don't really need to be Kant to say something really cool and reach a wide audience. But the question now is, we've talked about what to talk about, how to do it in a cool way. But the who is the most crucial part. So how do you actually reach the people that you want to engage? How do you reach these younger people from around the world? That's a very important question. Because you can dare to speak all you want, but if you can't reach anybody, what's the point? It's again the conundrum of academia. And I want to talk to you a little bit about that in my final words. Now, in Bulgaria, which is where I grew up, you're not really allowed to talk about the totalitarian past, especially if you're born after 1990. People say, you know, You're too young, you don't remember, let me tell you how it was. You know, there were great things or there were terrible things, but you're not really allowed to join that conversation. You go out to bars with your friends, they get angry with you for discussing politics. They're like, come on, you know, this is not our place, let's just have a drink. In the media like sphere, there's not really a lot of place for young people. It's occupied by people who are older. So therefore the conversation is different. It's old, it's rusty, the articles are long, they're boring, there's not a lot of visual content. And because there's no space for the post-socialist generation, for the millennial generation, we have to adapt. We have to read these newspapers anyway to get our news about what's going on in Bulgaria. And that kind of sucks. So what we did is that we try to develop our own language. We try to change the conversation from the bottom up. We try to utilize what I've been talking to you about, engaging, empowering, daring to speak, and also utilizing the digital media platforms that are available. So a few of us created an online magazine. It's called Bonita. And all we did is we tried to create an alternative space, an alternative platform, to see whether people are going to talk, like just a space for young people, by young people, just to see what will happen. And you know what? It worked. And now in Bulgaria, we have a very small imagined community of people that are our age, that are either in Bulgaria or abroad, who are using this website, submitting articles, talking to each other about politics, about history, about culture. Something that hasn't happened in Bulgaria until now, and it's growing. And we haven't put a single lev or dollar or euro in it. This is completely voluntary. And, you know, doesn't that show you what enlightenment is? Isn't this what Kant was talking about? I mean, Banitza is just an example of how you're adapting to the new language and to the limitless opportunities of digital media. In order to take charge and develop and change the conversation from within, obviously this is a much smaller scale than AJ+, but it's also much more personal. And so I wanted to talk to you about this. So we said switch from dare to know to dare to speak. So why don't we change from enlightenment to empowerment? It's not just about knowing, but it's really about going out there and doing things. And when it works out, it actually really works out. So we just need to find the right way to communicate with people. And I really hope that if I'd managed to kind of transfer a message, it would be that you should join this conversation too. Like, you should try to make things that are interesting to you personally, regardless of what they are. We've heard tech, we've heard history, we've heard politics. You should expose that and find spaces, because there's definitely people out there that are interested in things that you're interested in. And there's nothing like engaging in a conversation. Thanks for being patient with me while I walked you through all this. That's all. Thank you.